Alright, and welcome back to Gnomoria. This is Filtersc, and we are back for the second episode of my little Gnomoria Let's Play / tutorial. In this episode, we're going to take a look at creating our very basic workshops that we need to get everything up and running, as well as fixing a mistake from the last game, and then we're going to start doing a little bit of basic terraforming, just to kind of craft the world into the shape we want it. Now, the first thing we're going to do is fix a mistake we made with our professions. So we're going to go to Population, Professions, head over to Woodcutter, and we're going to set them up for Agriculture and Horticulture. Now, what this means is when it comes to planting trees in our groves, they will do that. Without that setting set, they won't actually do that, and you'll end up with a bunch of groves that have no trees in them, which obviously is not ideal. Alright, so we've got them fixed now, and I just bumped agriculture up to top priority so that they would deal with cutting down trees first. And then the next thing we're going to do, because our carpenter also cuts down trees, but we need a lot of trees cut really quickly, and we have 2 axes to start, as well as 2 pickaxes for mining, right? So what we want to do is just quickly move somebody from our labor over to our woodcutter. It doesn't matter if they're not very skilled at it, because I checked both our laborers and they're not. But for right now, it's much more important they do that. So we're going to do another thing really quickly, and we can see the stockpile is about to fill up, so I want to designate much larger stockpile, and we're going to make it down here. Doesn't matter if it's messy, because we're just going to undesignate it once we can build crates. But for right now, it's important that we get it going. And so our guys have jobs to do, and then we'll start hauling things around and over here, and it's a quick short jog up the hill, so to speak. Alright. Now, the next thing we want to do is we're going to let our guys go to work here. We want to set up our core. And these are what I like to call the core workshops. These are the most important workshops you're ever going to make to get your empire up and running. And there's 4 of them. There's 2 stone and 2 wood. These will basically craft everything you need to make the rest of your workshops, with a few exceptions. So we're going to go build, workshop, we're going to go to wood, we're going to make a sawmill. Now the sawmill requires another component that we get off our stonemason, but for right now we can still place it. So we're going to place our sawmill there. We're going to create our carpenter, and we're going to place that guy right there, and then we're going to build our 2 stone. Now what we need is a stone cutter, and we're going to place that guy right here. And that's too far forward, so we're actually going to cancel that job because I don't like it to not be even. And we're going to go stone cutter again, make sure it's even this time. And we're going to go stone mason. Alright, so what these workshops will do is the sawmill will create planks from logs, planks are what you use to build everything out of the carpenter. The stone cutter will create blocks from raw stone, which is everything you use for the stonemason. So these workshops kind of have to be built as close to each other as possible to function at kind of maximum efficiency. Now our carpenter is going to allow us to create more crates, more barrels. He's going to let us create halves, which are the handles for weapons. He's going to let us create knife blades, or not knife blades, but hilts for our knives. He's going to allow us to create wheelbarrows and all that fun stuff. But for right now, we don't want to assign anything to our carpenter because our crude workshop is still functioning. But the idea is to get rid of these crude workshops as fast as possible because they are not very effective. They take a long time to make anything. So you want to get these 4 workshops up and running because these will replace your crude workshop straight away. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is start replacing some of this clay. Now, clay is not very useful, but what we're going to do is we're going to go terrain, replace floor, we're going to select soil, and we're going to select dirt specifically because we don't want to replace clay with clay. That would be ineffective. Clay doesn't allow you to grow crops or create a pasture. It never grows grass, so we don't want clay. We're only going to replace it on this top level here. We're going to replace it with dirt. Now what will happen is they will replace it, and then grass will grow over time during the daytime. Grass only grows during the day and not in winter. Sometimes you can have a situation where your grass just doesn't grow and you have to replace the dirt again. You know, there are a few bugs. This game is still it's still technically beta. That being said, I feel like everything is there for a really good and effective game, so I'm not too worried about it. I don't really care. And we're also going to add on to our farm. So if we want to create a new farm, we could make a 1x2 farm here, but we want to add on to our already existing wheat farm. So we're just going to drag it out. And if we drag from an already existing farm over top, what it will do is just add on to that farm, right? And this is automatically becomes a wheat farm. We don't have to worry about it at all. The next thing we need to do is actually remove the floors here. So we're going to go terrain, remove floor. And we're going to select here, and we're going to get rid of... Oh, there we go. Got the right spot. We're going to get rid of the floor up to... we're actually going to go and get rid of all that. And then once that tree's cut, we'll worry about that after. What removing floor does is there's every single layer has two things on it. It's got a wall and a floor. The floor is required to walk over, so if you only build a wall, they can't walk on top. You need to build the floor on top of the wall. And sometimes you need to just remove the floor to get rid of it, right? Because you can see there's nothing below that one. Alright, so things are looking pretty good. We're going to get our miners to work, and what we're going to start doing is removing some of these ramps because we want to create a little raised plateau, and I'm not sure how far I want to take it, but we're just going to get rid of all these ramps right now. It's important to not trap our guys, so we don't want to do that, but we're just getting rid of all these ramps. And yeah, there we go. So this is the very basics of terraforming. We're going to get rid of... we don't need to get rid of those ones. Alright, so what's going to happen is our miner's going to go and he's going to remove all these outside ramps. And that's going to allow us to build walls there, which we can then put... On top of that, we can then put... we're actually not going to get rid of those. We can then put floors and all that. And raise everything up so everything's on the same level as this. Alright. Agriculture farm, we just need to add in here. Now we can see we've got grass here, so we're going to go pasture. We're going to add on there. You can see our stonemason and carpenter are finished. We're still waiting on our stone cutter and sawmill, but for now we don't have to worry about it. And our miners are going to work. Once we get all these trees cut off, we can start terraforming up there, but we don't need to worry about that right now. I do want to mine out a little bit more of this stone, just because stone is an important building block, so we're going to grab that stone. And our miners will go and do that. Alright, so everything's looking good. We've got a little bit of stuff to forage, so I'm going to get rid of all this, because I don't want it on the hill, because it'll make it hard to terraform the hill down to what we need. Alright. Miner's doing a good job of cutting everything down. That's great. Alright, so now we're going to start building this area up. So we're going to go build terrain wall. We're going to build it out of anything, soil-wise. I don't care if it's clay, it doesn't matter for the bottom layer. The top layer has to be soil. The bottom, the wall part doesn't, so it doesn't matter. And we're going to build this out. As you can see, it kind of automatically limits us to the area we have. So if I build it in one big clump like this, what'll happen is they will build it intelligently. Right, so that looks kind of dumb, but what they're not going to do is they're not going to build themselves into a hole where they can't get out of if you do it in one big block. If you do it in lots of small areas, sometimes you'll end up with a big gap that they didn't fill in. So it's important you do it in as big of a chunk as you possibly can. We'll add the floor on top, but we're going to do that a little bit later on. So next, we're going to build terrain wall, soil wall again, and we're going to build this bottom layer out. Here we go. And we will do the same thing on the other side. And for right now, I'm only going to take it to there, because I won't worry about it. I want to get a nice big plateau built first, before I really worry about anything else. And I actually don't need to do this section. Looking back, I want to keep it even. If I eventually need to go down there and build that out, I can, so not too worried about it. Good, we've got rid of the floors. Hopefully this lady cuts down this tree next. Excellent. Terrain, remove floor. Good, get rid of that. Then we can start doing ramp down. Now, the reason to use ramp down, whenever you want to cut down an area, and we're going to start right here, we're going to get rid of all this, is because when you choose ramp down, what they will do is they will cut it down with a whole bunch of ramps around the outside of it, and that means they don't get stuck. If you choose dig hole, there's lots of ways you can do it. You could you know, dig all, you can mine the walls underneath and then remove the floors. Much more time consuming, much higher chance of guys getting stuck while they do it. You could choose to dig holes, same problem, you can get guys stuck doing that, and we don't want that, so we're not going to do it that way. Ramp down is most important, and I'll show you why over here, because we're going to be able to do this area really quickly, and make it, we want to create a big cliff face that we can dig into to start building our Great Hall and all that fun stuff in there. Alright, so everything looks good. You can see we've kind of mined everything out. You can see this big stockpile over there. Perfect. Now we've got most of our workshops finished. So that means, let's just check, that's only got to make planks. Yep, so both of our crude workshops have finished building all the basics. So what we'll do is we'll get rid of our 2 crude workshops because they're not important anymore. We'll recover the materials. The important thing to remember with workshops is, even though I'm building these here, I eventually want to move them inside. When you deconstruct a workshop, you get back, you know, the chair, the table, the chisel, everything that was used to make it. So you can kind of recover and move your, you can move your whole camp. If I wanted to move to the other side of the map, I could do that very, very easily. Obviously I'm not going to, but you can if you want to. Alright, so if we check Kingdom, I noticed we discovered a merchant city. Merchant cities are okay. I'll explain diplomacy and trade and all that a little later on, because it's a little bit more advanced. It's going to take a lot of time to do properly. But generally, the basic idea is there's four different kinds of colonies you can meet. You can meet a merchant city. Merchant cities sell you everything, but they charge more. So merchant cities are okay, and typically they have lower stock of stuff that you want, like ore. Things of that nature. The one nice thing they do carry is they carry livestock, which is important later on. When you want to make a bunch of yaks, or you want to make an emu farm or an alpaca farm, you have to do it through a merchant state. Your yaks will actually breed with the initial 2 that you get, but you can always add on more if you want, or you could butcher your first 2. There's lots of options there. There's agriculture, which is kind of useful, but not really. They'll sell you, food and livestock at cheaper prices than you get from a merchant city. That being said, you should be producing all your own food and drink very easily, very early on, so it's not too useful. There's the lumber camp, which is probably the most useless, because typically with lumber you don't keep needing more lumber. There's nothing that you'll constantly make that requires lumber. You don't really make any trade goods out of lumber, for instance, whereas you can do that with stone and metal. So those are much more important. Then there's mining colony, which is the best. If you get a mining colony with your second thing, you're all set. However, we have 2 merchant city states, so we're going to be in good shape. There's nothing wrong with that. So if I'd have got an agriculture or a lumber camp, that would have been pretty disappointing, though. Alright, so now what we need to do is go to our stone cutter, and we want to create blocks. Now we want to make it out of this blue stone, and we want to craft 220, which means they'll always try to keep 20 blocks in stock, which means if I need to do anything quickly with my stonemason, I can, because I'll already have these blocks in stock, even if I'm not using them for anything. This will allow me to quickly create things if I need them in the future. Like one of the best examples is when you get into metal, you need to create a lot of stone based things to get your metal up and running, so it's important to already have the stock, because you don't want to be going and crafting the stone and all that stuff at the same time. It'll slow you down a lot. So we're going to do stone. Our stonemason's already set up to do that, so you'll see it'll start right away. And we want to go to our stonemason, and we want to set this to craft our saw blade, which is a very, very important part of our initial kingdom, because that is what is going to be used to finish off our sawmill, which we've already built the other components for. We're also going to go ahead and make get it to make 2 stone axes and 2 stone hammers, and that's all we need off it. We don't need any of the other things right now. Now, this is just going to make 1 of each. This is going to make 1 saw blade and then stop and remove it from the queue, which is what we want. I don't want to keep saw blades in stock because I only need the 1 sawmill. Same with the stone hand axe and stone hammers. These are going to be used for our military, at least for training. They're really crap and they don't work that well, but it's good for training. So we're going to go ahead and set that. You can see the sawmill is done. This is going to allow them to construct our saw blades done. That's going to let us construct our sawmill, and we're going to set it up the same way. We only want to make pine logs for starters, and we're going to set this to 40 because the pine planks are going to be very important. Alright, and then we're going to go over to our carpenter overview, set up to priority 4, and I'll explain that in 1 second. And what we want to do is create sticks. And we want to craft our sticks to 4, which means he'll always keep a stockpile of 4 sticks. Sticks are used for things like chairs and tables and torches, wheelbarrows, all sorts of stuff needs them, so it's important he's always got sticks available to him so he doesn't have to craft them every time. And with that being said, what we need are some wheelbarrows. So where are those guys? There they are. So we're going to craft 4 wheelbarrows. Now the wheelbarrows will allow our guys to go out and rather than grabbing 1 item and bringing it back to our stockpile, they'll go out and grab 32 items and bring those back to our stockpile, which is much more effective and efficient, right? So it's important we get 4 wheelbarrows right away. Eventually we'll go up to 8, just to make sure, because they're, you know, they're really cheap to make essentially, and it's important to have a lot of them so that your guys are always working efficiently. You never want it to get to a situation where they're not efficient. And then next, you notice we've already queued up the hand axes and hammers. Those use halves, which are made from the carpenter. So we're going to go ahead and make 4 of those as well. And we're also going to make 2 training dummies, and those are going to be used for our military training grounds, which is also very important. And then the last thing we're going to set up is a crate. And we're going to set our crate to craft to 1. Now the reason we're doing that is because we need to add more crates to our stockpile to store our logs, because we don't want them building up. So he's only going to make 1 crate, and he'll always keep 1 in stock, and it doesn't count what's already in the stockpile. So what I'm going to do is build storage crate, and we're going to add on 6 crates. And what that's going to do is they're going to build a crate and drag it over and construct it, and then my carpenter's going to go, oh, I don't have any crates in stock, and he's going to make another one. So whenever I add crates to something, my carpenter's going to go ahead and make them for me. I don't have to worry about adding anything to it, which is obviously very useful. Alright, so we've already dug that area out, which is great, so we're going to go and ramp this area down over here to even it up, and our miners will go ramp that down for us. Now what we need to do is farm, just add that there. What we're going to do is just add on a cotton farm. Cotton is used to make bandages and your cloth and all that stuff in the future, so it's important that we have that. So we're going to get that going right away. And we're going to go terrain, replace floor, dirt, and we're going to get rid of this clay, which is this darker colored, because we obviously don't want the clay, so I'd rather have that area available for farm if I need it. Once he ramps out, finishes ramping down this little area, we're going to add on a strawberry farm. Now strawberries are nice because they can be used as food, or they can later on be turned into drink. I prefer using strawberries myself. Some people like using grows for apple trees and things, but I find grows just take too long to get going. So I prefer to use the strawberries. Agriculture farm, and 10 by 5. That'll be our strawberry farm. And the important thing to note is meal variety isn't very important to your gnomes, but what is important is the quality of the meal and what type of meal you're making. The best thing you can make is sandwiches. Sandwiches are going to feed your gnomes for a long time. They won't have to eat for extended period of time. Same thing with drinks. That being said, eventually we will run out of drinks, so what we want to do is find some water and build a well. Now that we've got our basic workshops up, we're going to be able to get the stone and the planks that we need to get a well going. So now I just need to find water. There we go. I found some water, and we're just going to make an emergency well. Now the well is under build workshop, food, drink, well, and it doesn't matter what you make it out of. And it just has to be over top of water. You can actually, theoretically, I could tell them to build the well there, but they don't have any way to access it. So it's important to make sure your well is built next to the ground, right? There we go, and over top of water, and eventually somebody will go build that. Not overly important where it's located because it shouldn't be used very often. It's just an emergency. If you run out of drink and you're scrambling to build a well, people can die of thirst. So, and you obviously don't want that. So, all right. So things are coming along nicely. We've almost cut down all the trees up there. So after they do that, we're going to save our game because I had a problem with the crash last time I was recording, and I don't want to go through that again. So, all right. Purple areas typically denote that it doesn't have sunlight, but you don't have to worry about that because it actually does, and that'll fix itself during the daytime. Alright, so things are starting to look pretty good. We've got our basic workshops up and running. Our guys are hauling, they're building, everything's getting constructed. We don't have idle gnomes right now. so we don't have a lot to do, but just kind of wait around. Have we got all the stone? Yep. And we've actually already gathered it into a stockpile, which is great. So, just waiting on my guys to wake up, so we can go do that. And actually, by ramping this area down, that's going to give us the dirt to build our dirt plateau that we're trying to make as well. So there's 2 reasons to do that. And terraforming, sorry, is one of the hardest things to do in this game. It took me a long time to get right, but once you do get it right, it feels really good. And you can definitely make some really cool stuff once you get it right. But when you don't know what you're doing, you'll end up with, like, gnomes getting trapped everywhere. It gets frustrating. So I'm going to try to show you how to do it as cleanly as possible, so that when you go to play Gnomoria, you're going to be able to start forming the land the way you want it. And if you can get through to this basic setup, this is where the game really branches and opens out. Once you figure out how to terraform the land the way you want it, once you can get your basic workshops up and running, this is where the game really opens up. And just as a reminder, we don't have to worry about goblin attacks for a little while, so that's why I don't have any military set yet. But what I am going to do is get my military workshop set. So workshop, military training grounds, and we're going to slap this thing right here. It's not the best place for it. I'd rather it be at the front, but we don't have any room there. And we're just going to check to make sure. Yeah, they've got the training dummies built. Alright, one thing I neglected to mention when I was building this workshops actually, is what you do is you set your carpenter and your stonemason to priority 4, because the default priority is 5. So what will happen is if somebody is supposed to make stone blocks as well as use your stonemason to make things like weapons or whatever, what they will do is they will try to do stuff with the stonemason first. If they don't have any of the resources required, then they will start using the other workshop. Or sometimes you have, maybe my woodcutter's got no trees left to cut, and he'll also go ahead, and you can see he's already making some logs for me, right? So I would actually prefer it if he didn't do that. I think I got things in the wrong order there. Let's just go ahead and double check. Professions, go down to woodcutter. Oh, not sure why he's doing that right now, but oh well. And you essentially create a supply chain, right? So the most important workshops you want as high priority, the ones you don't care about you want a little bit lower. And you can also set up very advanced professions doing stuff like this. So like one thing I really like to do is I like to use a blacksmith and a smelter, but I like to let my blacksmith smelt as well. And the reason for that is if he's trying to craft armor but he doesn't have any coal, I want him to go make that coal. If the smelter hasn't already done it, right? Maybe the smelter's asleep or he's busy. I'd rather my blacksmith is not idle because he doesn't have a resource he needs. And if you set up your priorities and the jobs that are assigned correctly, your blacksmith will actually go and craft the coal, but your smelter won't go and try to craft weapons if you do it correctly. And then if your blacksmith has all the items he needs to craft weapons and armor, he'll do that. But if he's missing stuff, he'll go and smelt what he needs. So it's pretty easy to get going once you figure it out. Alright. We've got our wheelbarrows up. We're going to start building crates soon. That's excellent. And I'm actually going to start terraforming this in advance here. Actually no, just for the sake of telling you the correct way to do it and not messing it up, I will wait. And what I'm going to do to force that to happen is suspend both of these workshops, because what they're making is not overly important right now. And this will get my woodcutter to go and just cut down these trees. As you can see, they're already going up to cut down. Okay, once those trees are cut down, we will unsuspend these. Really? This guy's like, oh, I'm gonna go to sleep now. I'm not finishing this job. I'm going to sleep. Alright, there we go. So now we can get rid of the suspense here. Alright. And before we do this, I'm just going to save my game because I had a crash here last time and I'd rather not go through that again and lose a bunch of progress. Alright. So now what we're going to do is just dig and ramp this down. Now what you do is you always start from the top and you go down to the bottom, and you never want to dig under a layer. So I'll give you an example of that. Like if I do this, they'll actually try to ramp down underneath, and I'll end up with a bunch of crap in the sky, and it's ugly. So you only want to do it slowly and take your time. So we're going to start with these 3 tiles. We're going to ramp those down, and then we're going to do the next layer, and the next layer, and the next layer. Now what's important to note is you can ramp down from underneath another ramp, and it'll just create a cliff face above it. So I'll kind of show you what I mean here. So our miners are going up and they're ramping this down, which is perfect. And I'm going to choose the next section. So now they're going to go up and they're going to ramp this down too. As you can see, we've got guys hauling everything up. It's a little bit awkward to get around because of how we've kind of set this up to be built, but that's alright. And our miners have grabbed another job, but they'll go up and do this in 1 second. And what we're going to end up doing is we're going to cut down, or essentially cut all the land off this whole area and create just a big cliff face that we're going to take advantage of and use in our construction of our base. Because, you know, if it's a nice vertical cliff in front, that'll let us build up rather than having to build up and then build dirt around it and stuff. So things are looking good. It's important to keep your gnomes fairly busy, but not completely overload them, especially if you have important tasks. Now, from my perspective, this is all important. There we go. So you can see they've created a kind of cliff face here, and we're just going to ramp down the next level. We're going to start there, pull it across, and then they'll ramp down this level here. And everything should be pretty good and pretty efficient. So far it's looking good. Yep, there we go. Now he's starting to ramp down. And you can see, rather than trying to dig it out, remove ramps, remove platforms, I don't want to create a giant mess. And it took me a long time to kind of figure out how to do this properly. And just do it, be patient, and do it 1 layer at a time, and you'll quickly find that you can get it down rather fast. And you can see we're now adding crates to our stockpile, which means we can remove this designation. Just that's not as important. And they're going to start filling these crates with that wood, right? You know, there's probably about 60 pieces of wood here. That's 2 crates, so we're really, you know, cramping down the space there. You can see we're starting to get free areas in our stockpile. And I'm actually going to build a storage crate. I'm going to build another full row of these crates, because my carpenter really doesn't have anything else to do, and I'd much rather have the crates for storage, even if I have a little, you know, a few too many. Alright. They're continuing to build all this up, which is great. Eventually we're going to have to move all this back, because we're going to build our gatehouse over here. And what a gatehouse is, essentially, is just an entrance to your base where you put your training for your military gnomes. You can put their housing there, you can put food there for them if you want. Definitely want to put bandages there, so they can heal themselves. And then you kind of wall off the rest of it, so the goblins have to attack you through there, mants have to attack you through there, but luckily mants won't come for a while. And you should be good to go. Now the one thing we're going to do is we're going to build everything out of basic materials like dirt and stone initially, and the reason for that is we want to keep our kingdom worth down. If we built it out of really nice stone blocks and maybe a little bit of metal and wood and all that stuff, our kingdom worth would go up a lot, but our military power would be quite low, and the strength of the attack is based on your kingdom worth. So if you can keep that low early, that's good. But you do have to raise it eventually, because that's how you get nomads. So if you're not doing that, you're not going to get any nomads, and you want people moving in. Alright, so they finished this area, and what we need to do now is go build terrain floor. And we're going to go soil floor. Again, this is just going to be covered up, so I don't care if it's made out of clay or not. And then what they're going to do is build the floor so they can walk on top of that, and then I can build on top of that as well. So important to get that done. Worst case scenario, if they did build all these floors and there's no access here, I could just build stairs up and get rid of them later. So I'm not too worried about that. Alright, miners have finished that, so we're going to go terrain, dig, ramp down. And we're just going to get rid of that whole chunk. Now, you want to get as much of this terraforming and stuff like that out of the way early, because a lot of it is taken up outside of your base. So the earlier you can do it, the better you're going to be, or the better off you're going to end up being. And we're just going to go check on our well. Yeah, it's still not built. It's unfortunate, but not too big of a deal. And you can see our stockpiles are starting to get cleaned up a little bit, which is great. Later on, you can specialize your stockpiles, and there's ways to have it set up so that your gnomes are very efficient in terms of how they work, even if your workshops are a little ways apart. I'll show you how to do all that, but for the start of the game, what you want to do is just have your workshops near a stockpile, and just have the stockpile carry all the crap you get. And hopefully you don't fill it up with dirt, because that's dirt's not overly useful except for doing some of this early game stuff. You can see miner's doing a good job. They've already got that all dug out, so we're going to get on to the next level, which is start right there. And they're going to start digging that down. And you can see we've already clipped down a good chunk of this. Nobody's got stuck. It's not a mess. Very simple and easy to do. As well as we've already started to build up our little plateau that we want for ourselves, which is excellent as well. If you wanted to be faster about it and not have it look as good or be done quote-unquote properly, you could just build the floor from this area in the middle of the space, but I find that looks stupid, and I don't like making physics-defying stuff, so not going to do that. But you can if you want. It's on the cards. It's available. You could make your whole thing you can make an entire base completely floating in the air if you really wanted to. Or you can make it supported by, like, a dirt pillar, like just one tile dirt pillar, but it would look kind of dumb. But it's nice the game doesn't limit you like that. And you can basically build anything you can think of. If you want to build a giant golden pyramid in the middle of your map, you could. You'd have to find the gold and buy the gold and all that stuff, but you could. You could even make it with, like, traps and all sorts of cool stuff underneath it. But obviously we don't have the resources to do that right now. Maybe one day we'll make a golden pyramid, but not today. And just same thing, ramp down. And this is just going to make this nice and clean and easy. And it also gives our miners lots of practice too. And for right now we don't have to worry about digging and mining and looking for copper because we don't have metal workshops. And we'll worry about that a little bit later on. And right now we're basically just waiting for everybody to build things. And get our base up and running. You can see our farm fields have already been tilled. The areas that are green have seeds planted on them. You can see that's already 50 seeds planted. This one's 40. And unfortunately we only have 32 wheat seeds to start. We will get more as we farm. But our first initial batch of wheat is going to be quite small. But once we do get that, then we're going to be set up for creating more beds. Now the reason you don't want to make a ton of straw beds right away is because that's the food your yaks eat. If you make too many of them, your yaks are going to run away, which you don't want. And speaking of our yaks, we want to make life a little easier on them. So we're going to go build furniture. We're going to build a trough. Now the trough is what the yaks eat out of. And our herdsmen will actually stock this with straw, so they don't have to go to the stockpile, because theoretically the stockpile will be farther away, right? Right now it's not too big of a pain, but it's much easier to do it this way. And we're going to go to our stonemason, because this is the guy who does it, and we're going to ask him to build just one trough, any block, because again we only have the lapis lazuli. I don't know if I'll ever be able to pronounce that properly. You can see we've got our training grounds up and running. We don't have any military gnomes yet, so we're not going to worry about it. We're going to wait till we get our first group of nomads that come in, and then we're going to start our military from there, which is 2 gnomes. We don't really need any more than that, and because what we're going to do is we're going to use the vast majority of our people to kind of supplement our army in the early going, because the goblins aren't going to be very heavily armed initially. Maybe they'll have a couple of weapons with them, and hopefully we don't have anybody losing arms and legs and all that stuff. Build storage crate. This sometimes happens where they just delete your crate order and place something else over it, so we'll just have to re-add that. But you can see we've got crates now. Everything's looking a little bit cleaner. There's still a bunch of crap. These have to go into plants, or these pine clippings have to go into bags, and we can't make more bags yet. We could make more barrels, but we don't have anybody producing drink yet, so that's unnecessary. Typically when you play the game you want just a ton of crates, and then you want a few barrels. Barrels are only used for drink. Sorry, barrels are only used for drinks, so you don't actually need too many of them. Like if you had 10, and they store 64 as well, instead of 32 of a crate. So if you had 10 barrels, you could store 640 drink, which is enough for multiple years. You don't need any more than that. Alright, so we're just going to continue terraforming and cutting this area down. And once we get it, how many more layers do we need to go? Just one more layer, and then once we do that, we're going to call it a day for this episode, and we're going to come back tomorrow and talk a little bit more about just kind of finishing off this plateau. We'll finish that off, and then we'll start construction inside of here for our next set of workshops. So what I'll probably... Well, you guys can let me know in the comments if you watch the whole video, if you want me to show everything or skip ahead a little bit. Because the next episode will be quite a bit of just waiting. Because any kind of Gnomoria Dwarf Fortress based game does involve a lot of waiting. The nice thing about that though is you're thinking and you're planning ahead and all that stuff as you're playing the game. And so far I really like the area we've got. We've got lots of resources, we've got some big hills around here. We might start mining in the next episode, but we'll see. Because we'll have most of our ramp down kind of done. And we can start ramping this area down now. There we go. Looks good. And I won't worry about removing those ramps just yet. I will have to eventually, but not right away. And once that's done, we've set ourselves up to design our hall, which I guess I'll do in the next episode while they build everything else out. Because I can dig and mine at the same time. Then I can start shuffling workshops and stockpiles and stuff like that inside. And I would like to get a head start on my kitchens and all that, but that stuff's not very important. This guy's just falling asleep there. That's not so good. Hopefully we'll get our first harvest of wheat soon. It usually takes between 7 and 9 days to get your first harvest of wheat. Once that happens, you can build, another 6 beds, because you get the straw from it, and then you'll be able to plant more wheat and get more wheat and all that stuff. So you can see we're starting to get too many plants because we need more bags. We're just getting too much cotton now, but that's okay. They don't store cotton in crates; they store it in bags. So, and these bags are probably full of cotton right now. Yep. But unfortunately, we need a bone needle, and we'll have to wait for one of our yaks to be born, and then we'll kill the kill the new yak. Unfortunately, for a bone needle. We'll also get meat and bones to make bone armor and leather to make straps and all that. So it's good that we're doing that. All right, build terrain wall. And we're gonna build a soil wall through here. And hopefully they don't mess it up, because again, this isn't done in one big chunk. So it's possible they'll mess it up. If they do, I'll just build a stair over here or something. But they've finished all the flooring, which is great. And how much soil do we actually have? Yeah, we got plenty of dirt now. So you can see they're almost finished ramping all that down to the same level. And we just have to fill this area in, which is quite a task actually. Because you have to think about it in a game like this. Like if I go build terrain wall, let's go from here, because I can click here. I mean, we're going 35 by 20. That's 700 blocks just for this. If I were to just do this, that's 700 blocks, and that's not even enough. So, and I have to do that from 2 layers. So that's 1,400 blocks plus the floors. Like we're talking, 2,800 blocks of dirt. It's a big job, and they have to go get the dirt from here, move it over and build there. So it's going to be quite the exercise to do all this. We might even just cheat a little bit and build some of it later, and just build a kind of crappy bridge over. But now we've got all that done. One last thing to do is remove this ramp, because we don't want it. We want to have a flat cliff face. And yeah. In this episode, what we've managed to get accomplished is cutting down, cutting all the trees off this area and getting it cut down into a serviceable kind of flat area that gives us access to the mountain to build our great hall and our little base out of. We'll probably build our workshops on the floor below, and stockpiles and stuff like that down here, and we'll have our great hall here. Maybe make it a couple of floors, possibly, and then we'll have our gnomes staying in this area. Build lots of little houses for them up there, or not houses, but quarters. Oh, and here we go. So you see, we done messed it up. So we need to build stairs up, because otherwise this person's gonna die of thirst. And just to make sure this happens, we're actually gonna mine the wall right there, and I'm actually gonna cancel this. Cancel all these jobs for now. There we go. And build terrain wall, any clump. And we're just gonna reset it. There we go. So now they won't build themselves into a corner. The reason that happened is because this area was new, and it wasn't part of the initial build plan. When you build in one big chunk, they'll do it intelligently. But if you start adding on to how you're building, that's where you start running into problems of your gnomes doing stupid stuff. Which, you know, it's not ideal. You don't want them to do that. That being said, what we're going to do is just quickly set up a dirt clump soil floor, and we're going to get that set up to be built. And we're going to build it like that, so our gnomes can go ahead and just start adding on top here. It's a lot. We're asking our gnomes to do a lot, but it's okay. We've got lots of people to do the job. And what we need to do now is get our woodcutter, this guy, who's not a woodcutter at all, get him back into the labor, so that we have another guy building and hauling. Even though our woodcutters would do that naturally, we just want to make sure it gets done. And everything's looking good. You can see we've actually got some wheat grain, so a little bit of our farm has come through for us, which is excellent. And we have food in our trough. Yeah, we do. So there we go. What we're going to do is get our beds being made, and then from there we're going to end this episode. So we're just going to build 6 more straw beds. These are crap, but at the same time it lets them get a little bit better sleep so they can work longer. Eventually you get up to like 4-poster beds with nice rooms, and they'll sleep like once every few years. But we're not nearly like that. One of the worst things you can have happen is like all your gnomes just fall asleep on the floor from exhaustion, and then they'll like wake up and work for a few hours and then fall asleep on the floor again. It's not very efficient. So you'd rather have them sleeping on beds. And yeah, that should do everything. I do need to designate a hospital, but I'll do that at the start of the next episode, just in case anybody's kind of got the basic concepts from this one and has already tuned out. That being said, that is going to do it for me. This episode ran a little bit long, but I wanted to make sure we put everything in place just the way we want it. And I will see you guys next time, where we will hopefully have most of this area finished and fleshed out, and we're going to show you how to start digging in and building up your multiple level great hall and your areas for all your workshops. And from there maybe we'll do a little bit of advanced stockpile stuff before we get into mining and all that fun stuff, so we can mine and make armor and weapons and all that. And we're also probably going to have to deal with the military in the next episode as well. So with that being said, I'm Filtersc, and I will see you guys next time. We're just going to save as well on the way out. Take care, guys.